Are your blood pressure readings lying to you? A single blood pressure reading can feel definitive, but it can also be noisy, unrepresentative, or badly timed. The screen examples in this video use the 1-year mock data file included with the app by Werner Tools and Werner, so what you see here is a workflow demonstration, not a claim about your own medical record. The app's role is to compare the one reading against repeated entries, the plot shape, the average, the trend slope, and the date range around a treatment change. That is how it helps answer whether the reading is telling the truth about your pattern or just hijacking your attention for one moment. One blood pressure reading is not a blood pressure pattern. Start with the entry screen. It records repeated systolic and diastolic readings over time, which matters because one number can be unusually calm, unusually high, or simply out of character for that week. If you only remember the latest reading, you may think your blood pressure is better or worse than it really is. The app depends on a series, not a single point, because the real question is what your blood pressure has been doing across repeated days, not what happened during one isolated measurement. The plot tells you whether the reading is honest. The blood pressure plot is the fastest way to see whether a reading fits the line around it. In the sample screen, you can inspect both systolic and diastolic values together and see whether the reading sits inside a stable range, a drifting range, or a choppy stretch that should not be overinterpreted. That matters because a decent reading at the end of a worsening line can feel falsely reassuring, and one rough reading in an otherwise stable pattern can feel more dangerous than it is. The plot makes that context visible. Average versus latest reading is where the mismatch shows up. The summary view helps expose another common trap, trusting the latest reading more than the actual average. The latest systolic and diastolic values may look better than the recent average, or worse than it, depending on the day. The app keeps both on screen at once. That is useful because your average and your latest reading answer different questions. One tells you where the broader record has been landing. The other tells you what happened most recently. If those two are far apart, you should notice the mismatch before drawing a conclusion. Trend slope and spread reveal what a single reading cannot. The app also reports trend slope and IQR, the middle spread measure. Those two details matter because a reading can look acceptable even while the line is drifting upward, or it can look alarming inside a pattern that is mostly stable but noisy. The notes screen explains the idea directly. Smaller IQR means more consistent readings, while larger IQR means more variability. That is exactly how a reading can seem to lie. Not because the value is fake, but because it hides whether the pattern is consistent, drifting, or scattered. Timing can make the same reading mean something different. A blood pressure reading also needs timing context. The begin and end selectors let you define a window around a treatment change, routine change, or other event, instead of judging numbers in a vague all-at-once blur. That matters because a reading of 130/76 can mean something different before a medication starts, after it starts, or after a second change is layered on top. The app keeps the date range visible so the measurement is interpreted inside the phase that actually produced it. Compare one phase to the next instead of flattening the year. The block comparison view is where the pattern becomes practical. It separates one phase from another so you can see whether blood pressure really changed after a medication, lifestyle shift, or other event. In the sample blocks, the average and trend values differ across phases. That is important because a full-year average can hide the fact that one block improved while another stayed flat or reversed. The app exposes those phase differences so one reading does not get mistaken for a permanent trend. Use this before the doctor visit, not in the waiting room. This workflow is especially useful before a doctor visit. The doctor visit button builds the range, opens the report flow, and helps you save the version you reviewed ahead of time. That means you can walk in knowing whether your latest blood pressure reading matches the average, whether the trend is drifting, and whether a recent treatment change seems to line up with the pattern. The goal is not to self-diagnose. The goal is to stop letting one noisy reading dominate the whole conversation. What this app can prove, and what it cannot. The right conclusion is disciplined. This workflow can show whether a blood pressure reading fits the broader pattern, whether the trend is drifting, and whether the readings are tightly clustered or highly variable. It cannot diagnose hypertension, replace proper technique, or guarantee that one improvement caused the next block to improve. Sparse data, overlapping changes, and bad measurement timing can still blur the result. So the best use case is to use the app as a pattern-checking tool that helps you ask better questions and stop overreacting to one number. About the app, privacy, and where to get it. Therapy Impact and Glucose Analyzer is by Werner Tools and Werner. It is a Windows desktop application for personal tracking of blood pressure, glucose, weight, medications, and dated lab results. Privacy is straightforward because the workflow is built around local files on your computer, and the app does not upload your readings, reports, exports, or backups to cloud services. The full app can be obtained on Etsy for $9.95. Use the link shown on screen, etsy.com/listing/451-336-5729, or scan the QR code shown here.